Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rock and Roll podcast. Check out this record. My name is Frank, and today we're going to bring you some feast or famine over the Rivanna Junction. And the best person to do that with, again, is my buddy Mark.
Well, hey, ho there. Let's go there, friends.
That's right. You can always find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, and you can see these mugs right here on YouTube.
But when? Great question. Thank you so much for asking. New episodes drop each and every Friday when we remember.
Yes, providing no mishaps. And for those wondering, this is the second time we're recording this one. So if you're hearing us for the first time, you're probably not annoyed with one of our past reviews. So welcome.
Give it time.
But just wait.
Yeah.
Because as you become more knowledgeable in the music that we love, your friends are going to start not liking you as you move past those Zeppelin records at the store and reach for something better. And here, of course, we review records track by track, lots of musical discussions, spotlight episodes that might even include some rock and roll mysteries.
Okay, so you're definitely going to want to make sure you check out our Verse series, where Frank and I will duke it out on behalf of two bands in the name of what we like to call Total Stereo Domination.
Amazing.
How was that? That was good?
Amazing. So while you're checking that out, check us out and our Instagram, Facebook group, hopefully leaving you wanting more of these delicious episodes and our musical goodness. If you got a record you want us to check out, drop a comment wherever you find us, like, subscribe, rate, review. So, Mark, I was influenced by last week, 2 weeks ago, episode so much that I decided to take on the band's lead singers. Their debut solo albums. Well, kind of nice. As there are two singers in Hot Water Music, right. But we're pitting these two against each other. So we have Chuck Ragan's Feast or Famine versus Tim Berry's Rivanna Junction. So in 1999, Mark, I would say Mike Ness's Cheating at Solitaire was the first album that I was aware of where the front man of a band that I adored branched out to a solo record. By the mid-2000s, that was starting to become a trend, more than likely due to the number of reasons. Bands that were formed in the 80s and 90s were going on hiatus due to being burnt out. These singers were also approaching the ages where responsibility and family became a prominent factor in their life. So taking an acoustic guitar on the road presented an easier and manageable schedule, and the musical taste started to change. Did you say that last time? Mark, what was your reaction to these guys putting out solo records? Were you interested in them at the time, or were we too involved in our loud, fast bands where no one came to see? I personally forgot.
For me, I liked this, but at the same time, it wasn't a focus because, like you, I was really into those louder and faster bands. But as I've been thinking about this, I think we got to remember, here we are, 2007 is the first record, 2006 for Rivanna Junction, 2007 for Feast or Famine. If you think back to like 2000, 2001, the folk punk movement is really getting off the ground. The Celtic punk movement's really getting off the ground. So the introduction of the more acoustic stuff had been happening, right? And it was kind of at that breakneck speed that kind of appealed to guys like you and I. But here we see the singers really starting to take it down and go back to a little bit more of true to style, if you will, a little bit more classic format into those folk and country backgrounds. And it wasn't something that maybe I appreciated as much as at the time as I do now. But looking back on it, it's interesting to see how, as things changed, right, as we got into that kind of odd, like Celtic punk, pirate punk, all that stuff. And then as the fad of that wore away, there was genuine roots to it. And you can see that these are two excellent examples of that kind of music still being there.
Absolutely. And a lot of this could be stuff that these two respective singers were hearing in their households, right? And it's that pre-punk stuff that you've heard, and then you circle back around to it. So, Mark, why don't you, again, pick us up where we left off with the Hot Water Music, where we had Caution, and how we arrived here at Chuck Ragan's solo debut record.
Absolutely, my friend. So after 2002's Caution from Hot Water Music, they released their third album on Epitaph, The New What's Next. And in 2004, and in late 2005, through No Idea Records, the band announced that they'd be going on hiatus following Chuck Ragan's departure, citing family reasons, quote unquote. While this was intended to, I didn't mean to laugh at his family reasons. Frank did something that made me giggle.
Right.
Well, this was intended to be a temporary hiatus. In 2006, the band announced that the hiatus would actually be permanent, but not. The remaining 3 members would then go on to form a band called The Draft, and in September of 2006 would release their first album, In a Million Pieces, which is a badass record.
Oh, yeah.
And in 2007, Chuck would go on to make his way to Mad Dog Studios in Burbank, California. I think I said that right. And record his debut solo album, Feast or Famine, released August 7th of 2007. Back to you, Frank.
All right, I caught it. So on Feast or Famine, it is indeed a feast of really well-crafted songs. Ragan's rough voice is matched by the heavy-handed strumming of the acoustic guitar. This album starts extremely strong with songs like The Boat, For Broken Ears, California Burritos. The intricate lyrics on the song Like the Boat made me, and I think you, both fall in love with these tunes. Here are some lyrics. Some days were ripped, and torn away from the shore and tossed to a watery grave. We love that line. Set adrift in the depths of the drink. In the hands of the gods, we curse. You can't help but picture Ragan on his boat as this sound plays as a backdrop. I could just see it right now. Burritos, of course, California Burritos gives us the folk punk with violin, and of course that you could just sing along to with at any bar. And it's important to note too that was actually a song from from Rumble Seat, which was Ragan and Chris Woolard. So there is a version of California Burritos under that moniker as well.
This one's better.
This one is better, absolutely. We get the full-on banjo and on the very endearing Geraldine, which is about his mom, who's actually a traveling ventriloquist and would go around to perform at churches and prisons.
Which is where most puppet acts happen.
There you go. And the album then continues with a mixture of fast and slow folky songs. In Hearts of Stone, you not only feel the harmonica racing through your veins, but the sound of the wind between Ragan's strumming hand and the string, it acts just as an absolute cog in the arsenal. When I listen to this record, Mark, I always look at most records, but I'm talking about this one right now. I look at the cover, and in my mind, all these images are created in relation to the album art. What this album brings to me is those peaceful areas that Ragan finds on his boat and being in an open field while trying to sort out feelings of life, perhaps death, and everything that is wedged in between. The mixture of the gruff voice and the faster folk style really sets up Ragan for his solo albums yet to come. I give this album a 9 out of 10.
Yeah. You know, Frank, it took me some time to wrap my head around this record. Here, Chuck gives us like modern American folk music, and it has all the dressing of what folk music was back in like the 40s and the 50s, you know, very rebellious and very heartfelt. You can feel the strings of every instrument just being pounded into submission as Chuck's gruff voice rouses Frank,
rouses
very being rouses. I adore so many of these songs, but especially the B-side of this record, Don't Cry, with its fast-paced strumming and understanding of the pains we each carry. Symmetry's slow but methodical pacing places you right on that rocking boat, staring straight up at the stars and asking yourself if you've given as much as you've taken. The raucous between the lines straps you to a locomotive as it hurtles through the hell of coming to age at war, both in the world and in your head. You know, Hearts Made of Stone's message of freeing yourself from the bondage of the life you've been dealt by taking responsibility for it is timeless and beautiful. And The Grove is simply haunting with its pleas for mercy. And of course, Do You Want, Do What You Will, to close the album. It was really the only place such a heartfelt number could or should go. Absolutely stunning record. 9 out of 10. Definitely check out this record.
Yeah, totally. Well, on to Tim Barry's debut. So after Over the James, Avail released 2 records on Fat Records, 2000's One Wrench and 2002's Front Porch Stories. On November 21st of 2006, Barry released his debut, Rivanna Junction, on Suburban Home Records. Now, Rivanna is a tributary of the James River, taking the tactic of what I mentioned earlier. The album cover, we have here Barry standing alone on a train tracks with the train tracks visible. So, you're getting some really heartbreaks right here.
That was a wonderful tributary, Frank. Sorry, I just wanted to use tributary in a
right. It's fun.
It is. So Tim Barry walks a fine line between modern folk, folk, not folk. I don't know, whatever. You know what I mean?
I do.
Alt country and blasphemy on Rivanna Junction, all filtered through his sarcastic but loving heart, guitar, and voice. Trash inspiration opens with church bells tolling, and you're in for an emotional ride. Avoiding catatonic surrender. My tongue died. I just had a really big pickle, and it's like messing with my tongue. Anyways, avoiding catatonic surrender opens with Tim saying he hates this fucking song, a song he wrote while driving trucks for a living, while the darkness of his thoughts were all he had to keep him company on the road.
That's it.
Love and lust and lost. He contends with the madness of the world crashing around all of us while balancing it against the love and the irony of writing songs about all of that shit. Dog Bump is as classic of a folk tune as you'll ever hear, a tribute to his friend that's literally serving time for the actions he describes in the song. Really fantastic. There's a live cut of that on one of his live albums. I highly recommend.
Oh, it's so good.
Church on Level Tracks is a heartbreaking lament for those who wander this world lost, looking for their place in it. Then you get the thundering strumming of Exit Wounds, cuts as deep as Tim Barry's lyrics of love lost and the lengths he'll go to move on. And then you get Cardinal in Red Bed, which opens the B-side with a somber, haunting piano paired just with Tim Barry's very somber voice and vocal delivery, just to tug harder and harder at your heartstrings, because emotionally, you just haven't given enough yet, and you owe it to Tim. The soul-searching takes on a country and blues upbeat swing with Shoulda Oughta. Then you get Steel Road, giving us the title of the album with its mention in the opening line. And while he rifles off the name of places that the train might be going, this number is really about not understanding how to connect with others. This tale of his parents fighting, his isolation, being left with only his thoughts and his need to run. He's bearing his soul here, Frank, just long enough for you to see he takes refuge on the road again. It's really just so spectacular how touching that song is. I'm almost done here, folks, I promise. Comin' Quinn, he gives us a snapshot of what it must be like to be in a relationship with him, his insecurities about a woman he loves and how much he does love her. Yeah. Rivanna Junction ends with Wait at Milano's, and it's a spectacular example of how powerful, simple, heartfelt lyrics are. And a little repetition can really drive home hope in a way that connects with listeners better than any pop number's stupid hook will ever be. I'll leave you with a few lines from Exit Wounds that I feel sum up the beauty and pain that this album tries to convey. I see guilt in your eyes, but there's some things from me you can't hide. Truth is hard, guilt is easy.
Woo!
9 out of 10. Check out that mother flipping record.
Yeah. Wow. So, just one look at this record again, and you're going to get some tunes about loneliness and struggles. Although most of the tunes are isolated with Barry on guitar or even piano, the album kicks off with the foot stomping tune and trash inspirations. Then, of course, we have a personal highlight of mine, the avoiding catatonic surrender, with one of my all-time favorite lines. I'm not going to say which line it is. Just go ahead and listen to it. Dog Bump gives us Barry's outlaw country potential. and The Baron, Cardinal, and Red Bed is a really touching ballad that screams of desperation and has almost like a retreatness in his vocals. The rest of the album gives us Barry's interpretations of what I personally feel he's letting us know how a country album should be. And I'll say from his looks, the voice, the songs, he could be a legit country star. I always say that. This is a very special album for me, Mark, and like you, and like what I gave Feast or Famine, 9 out of 10.
Man, two absolutely stunning records. Have I mentioned that they're stunning, Frank?
You absolutely have. And let's talk actually how these albums differ, even though they are in the same realm and community.
Sure.
I like how Hot Water Music and Avail differs, even though they're part of the same community. So Ragan to me has a very spiritual, not religious feel to it. That may be to the environment that he was brought up in. Some tunes I found, like Do You Pray, has like an English and almost Celtic folk vibe. And I think that holds strong with the songs that have those choruses that a crowd you could basically sing along to. Barry to me is more Americana to its core. From the abstract and visual perspective, I'm getting again, now keep in mind these are the album covers, right? So with Reagan's I'm getting water, fields, woods. With Barry's I'm getting train tracks, desolate towns, Virginia, of course, always as the backdrop in his music. The songs are a little more abrasive than Reagan's, although Reagan's strumming is technically heavier with just that heavy hand of his. I'm not sure. It maybe there's that straight up approach that Barry has with the cursing, and I think that element makes this more kind of a down on your luck record. Ragan definitely shows struggles, but there's light. There's some light that is presented there. I don't think we're at the light stage yet in Barry's songs, which begs the question, about the journey of this album. The piano featured on Rivanna, we don't see that on Feast and Famine, and a track like Exit Wounds builds up where you could basically rock out. Now in Reagan's subsequent albums down the line, you get some more rocking out moments. Vocally, these are also two different styles. Mark Ragan has such a force and power to his voice. It's a beast unto itself. Barry has range, but way more clarity. The words are more audible with a singing style like that. And all of this, Mark, that I'm yapping about, it just makes the decision that much harder.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Both of these albums work as part of what some folks would call that folk punk, but others then the excuse me, the fact that they're more acoustic focused and sonic, more holy moly, they're more acoustic focused sonically. They're very different. Your old world folk interpretation of Feast or Famine, I think, is spot on. He does a great job of turning those old world elements into modern folk works of art, whereas Rivanna Junction feels tied to the tracks it's referencing and drags its listeners through the dirt and the gravel and the mud and the heart, really, of the Rust Belt. It's interesting, given both of these records, if you put these onto somebody who hadn't heard either Hot Water Music or Avail, I don't know that you would have said these guys were in punk bands before they did this, because there's no indication outside of, unless you understand that punk rock can be heartfelt, that there is anything to that. So I think you and I have some hard choices to make. Frank, would you tell us who you picked?
Yeah. So this is hard, but after listening to these back to back and all that stuff, and just because I pick one, it doesn't mean that the other is lesser, but I'm going to go with Tim Barry's Rivanna Junction. That to me is the one that I think has impacted me more. Although when I first heard both of them back in 2007, which is when by then both of them were released, and that's when I was listening to them, I think I would have said Reagan's. But just over the years, the songs and how Barry's interpretations of those are, they just been impacting me just slightly more. So that is my winner. Mark, what about your winner, not wiener?
Well, thank you for asking. First, I want to tell you, Frank, there's no such thing as a wrong answer.
That's true.
But I also picked Rivanna
there
Junction.
You go. There you go.
Yeah. Honestly, you summed it up really well. This is just an amazing record, right? I know that you mentioned you alluded to a little bit of Chuck's the light kind of that filters through Feast or Famine. And that's great. It absolutely works for that record. But I think when you look at an album like Rivanna Junction and you take on all of the darkness that comes with it, basically like you put it on and a black cloud comes over you. It's perfect in that aspect. I don't want to say perfect. I feel like Tim Berry would punch me in the mouth for saying perfect. But it's a righteous record. Very cool. And yeah, I think you and I, sir, Rivanna Junction for the win.
There you go.
It's unanimous.
It is. Well, Mark, game time. Not really. I know. I just have I just have a couple of things for you.
Sure.
And
please be a hot dog.
Yeah, no, so it's not a hot dog. It's not a pickle either.
I just had that really good pickle, man. It's so good.
So we compared, two albums from two frontmen of bands, but maybe let's throw a little, let's put another quick kind of verses and how they compare and contrast with each other, just to get your thoughts. So I'll kind of throw them at you. So, we talked about Mike Ness's Cheating in Solitaire, right?
Sure.
So what if that was against like Frank Turner's England Keep My Bones? Like what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts around that?
Man, that's a great question. Both of those Mike Ness solo albums, both Cheating at Solitaire and Under the Influence, harken so much back to his country roots and to his, his love for, that cowpoke sound that he helped invent, and really takes it into this other direction. But on the other hand, you get Frank Turner doing that almost very traditional English folk.
Yeah.
And very moving, very, rich album that really focuses around death and mortality and how we deal with that. And the two albums are both very different in those kinds of ways. For me, I think I'm going to take Frank Turner on this one.
Right.
That was the album that Frank Turner stole my heart, and it's been a bummer listening to his music ever since because all those new albums suck. That's just me. If you like those records, it's fucking fine. You don't have to yell at me.
Yeah.
But no, I think for this one, Frank, I think I'm taking Frank Turner.
Yeah, and two very different takes on those things, because like you said, Mark, that obviously in the title England Keep My Bones is such an album about England, and Mike Ness turned us on to a lot of the American side of stuff, and a lot of even slight rockabilly in that as well. So I think for that one too, as far as an album experience, I'm going to be taking. Yeah, I'll take England Keep My Bones as well. Okay, so a person who's been on Chuck Ragan's revival tour, not the one we saw, but he also released the solo record, and Tim Berry's been on the revival tour. So what if it was the solo debut by Brian Fallon put up against the Tim Berry record and the Chuck Ragan record? So 1, 2, 3. Like, what do you got going on there?
Well, I think just for the ease of answering this question, definitely still Chuck. I'm still taking Rivanna Junction, but I think you definitely picked the better of the Brian Fallon albums. That's short of that awful Mojo Hand song, and that song is awful, folks.
Yes. But the first album's great.
Other than that, it's a great record, and I think it harkens back. And I'm sure he'd be pissed about this. It sounds the most like you would expect of a Gaslight Anthem album of all of the records that he's done. And the reason I say that is that it's the one where he seems to be the most true to the songwriting he's done up into that part. Right. He takes the least chances. And that last record had that awful drum machine in it.
Yeah.
There's the second record has a couple tracks where he's like really laying on that faux soul sound. So I think Sleepwalkers is the name of the first album.
Painkillers, Sleepwalkers.
Painkillers, excuse me.
Yeah.
Right. Painkillers is the best of them. I think it could have been the next Gaslight album if they really had tried, just obviously again without Mojo Hand. But no, definitely still Chuck. And I think if I'm then backing it down and going, well, does that Brian Fallon album come in over Feast or Famine? Absolutely not. Feast or Famine is still better than that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Feast or Famine over Painkillers, and if Rivanna's in the mix too, then Rivanna obviously over that. Yeah, that as well. I do think that that's the truest album of Fallon to represent his work. It's not folk by any means, and these are kind of more folky and country.
Sure.
But it's, I think, Fallon at his truest form at the end of the day, not trying to force anything. I think just trying to be at that spot at that time, and this is what the progression has led him to. So yeah, nice.
Burp.
Yeah. A couple others. So we have like Joey Cape's solo album.
Ooh, Bridge.
His debut, Bridge. How does that stack up against, say, like his buddy's album, who's no longer with us, the Tony Sly first solo record?
Oh man, I'll be honest. I'm far more familiar with the Joey Cape than the Tony Sly solo album. That was that 12 song program.
That's the 12-song program record.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great record. I wasn't as into No Use for a Name as I was into Lagwagon.
You're right.
So I naturally lean more towards Joey Cape and Bridge in this choice. But I think both of those are definitely killer records. Both worth your time checking out. And yeah,
I'm gonna say Bridge too. Although I adore Tony Sly's writing. But the Caper is also one of my all-time favorite songwriters, and I think, 95% of the stuff he puts out I like. In fact, it's probably higher than that just because I adore it so much. So the Caper on that. That's kind of it, Mark, unless do you have any comments about Cokie the Clown?
No. Yeah, somebody shoot Fat Mike. You shouldn't say that, right? No,
probably not. You probably shouldn't say that.
I mean, that dude has enough money. Stop giving him money. Like, honestly, none of the NoFX albums have been good. Cokie was terrible. That musical he put on about homeless kids, I want to believe that he meant to help somebody with that, but that thing was trash.
The best part of Cokie was the big flower that just poofed the powder. That was probably the best part of it.
Unless you were on the receiving end of it, yeah.
Right. Well, watching that, yeah.
Watching it, yeah.
Oh man, good times, Mark. So why don't you tell us, pickle and all, what do we have for next week?
Frank, I am so excited for this week's pick. I'm running out to the Carvel Creamery to grab a Fudgy the Whale ice cream cake so that you and I, sir, can celebrate the 40th anniversary of none other than Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. Hell yes. And look, dude, check it out. I still get the sticker from when I bought it.
Yeah, you did.
Heaven $5.99.
Oh my God.
This bad boy's been in my collection for a long time. And let me tell you something. It's staying in there for all time.
Man, I can't wait. All right. Well, it's going to be an exciting, can't wait to record it, which will be shortly. Thank you everyone for listening. We appreciate you stopping by. Remember, like, subscribe, rate, review, and remember, be safe out there, folks.
Yes, do all that. But don't forget to say it with me now. Oh my. Oh, hell yes. Oh, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Frank, let's do that a third time. Oh, it's so nice. Yes.